So today we have been celebrating the Snan-yatra Mahotsava, the festival of the bathing of Lord Jagannath, which has been performed, this festival, for thousands of years in Jagannath Puri. So what's actually happening? It seems that Lord Jagannath needs a bath, but Lord Jagannath is the supreme pure as Krishna in one of Krishna's many forms. But actually there's something more confidential going on. But before we get to that, let us know that the fortnight, 14 or 15 days or so, of Lord Jagannath going into hiding after being bathed is a time for him to be repainted, because generally after washing the Jagannath deity, there needs to be repainted. Yes. And it's more confidentially a time for Lord Jagannath to be alone with Mahalakshmi, the goddess of fortune. Because Jagannath Puri is Dwarka, the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in opulence, Aishvarya. So there's a plan in mind that Lord Jagannath has. He wants to go to Vrindavan. But first, he has to pacify Mahalakshmi. So he spends 15 days in isolation with her. And then, or during those 15 days, the servants of Lord Jagannath serve him fruit juice because supposedly he has a fever. And therefore he's out of the public eye, when actually he wants to be alone with Mahalakshmi, the supreme goddess of fortune. This is Dwarkadam opulence. It's not Braj here. So after 15 days of being hidden from sight, there's a festival called Netro-utsava, the festival of the eyes, in which Lord Jagannath comes out of seclusion and is on the altar. So, for 15 days, the devotees have been feeling separation from Lord Jagannath. And so he comes out, and that is a great event, described in Chaitanya Charitamrita as the life and soul of the devotees. This is before Ratha-yatra day. When Lord Jagannath is in seclusion, that's called Anusvara. And now he's coming out, freshly painted, and it's called Netro-utsava because at last we can see him, the devotees are thinking. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is leading the way in thinking like that. So Mahaprabhu and his associates leave their residence early in the morning to be there right when the Netro-utsava festival starts, when they can see Lord Jagannath after 15 days of his absence. So Lord Chaitanya and his intimate associates walk towards the temple in Jagannath Puri. The crowds are already forming, and so some of Lord Chaitanya's associates keep the crowds away from him. He's surrounded by his dearest devotees like Srup Damodar. So they make their way to the temple. Now, where does Lord Chaitanya usually view Lord Jagannath from? Usually from behind the Garuda Stamba, which is a column with Garuda on top. And that's further back from the altar. So Lord Chaitanya usually views Lord Jagannath, whom Lord Chaitanya sees as Sakshat Brajendra Nandana, directly the son of Maharaj Nanda. Usually, he stands behind the Garuda Stamba, the column bearing Garuda, and cries so much that a river of water forms at his feet. But today, because of not seeing Lord Jagannath for 15 days, Lord Chaitanya and his associates march into the altar room where Lord Jagannath is receiving his offerings, which pujaris will tell you that's a no-no. Don't try to do it here. They just, so to speak, get right up in Lord Jagannath's face. They haven't seen him for 15 days, so Lord Chaitanya broke the puja rules. He wants to see Lord Jagannath, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Of course, Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the role of a devotee. So it's very interesting, the exchanges between the two. In the role of a devotee, Lord Chaitanya is seeing Lord Jagannath as Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya is in the role of Srimati Radharani, Krishna's dearest devotee, more dear than even Mahalakshmi, the Supreme Goddess of Fortune. As we were explaining the other day, actually, just as Krishna expands himself into other avatars, other expansions, plenary portions, similarly, Srimati Radharani expands herself into the queens of Dwarka, the Lakshmis of Vaikuntha, so there, in the altar room, where the Lord is receiving his offerings, Lord Chaitanya and his associates march right in. And they just look and look and look. You are allowed to stare at the deities unlimitedly, as much as you want. And Mahaprabhu is setting that example. Generally, people don't like to be stared at. If someone comes up to you and gazes at you without stop, hour after hour, how would you feel? Go away, leave me alone. Stop bugging you. But when it comes to the deities, and that applies to Shri Shri Radha Damodar also, you can just stare and stare and stare and don't feel bad about it. Don't feel that it's something strange. So Chaitanya Charitamrita describes what was going on. Lord Chaitanya's eyes were like bumblebees. And the eyes of Lord Jagannath were like blooming lotus flowers. So the bee was drinking the honey of the lotus flower without cessation. So Lord Chaitanya and his associates on the altar in the deity room were just staring at Lord Jagannath. They hadn't seen him for 15 days. They would stare and stare and stare. It seems that after a long time, they left the deity room and performed kirtan in front of the Jagannath deity. Whenever, just as was happening now, the doors closed and an offering was made. They would have kirtan when the doors closed. And then what happens when the doors open again? More staring and staring and staring. The beauty of Lord Jagannath increases at every moment. You may not see it that way because of conditioned eyes, but Lord Chaitanya, as a Supreme Personality of Godhead in the role of a devotee, certainly notices the ever-increasing beauty at every moment of Lord Jagannath. So the staring goes on and on and on. Finally, the associates of Lord Chaitanya tell him it's time to go home for lunch. Lunch prasad. Taking of prasadam is very important. Not simply because one is hungry, but because the soul is hungry for spiritual nourishment that comes from food offered to Krishna with love and devotion. And Lord Chaitanya and his associates know the next day, after the Netro-utsava festival, the festival of seeing with the eyes, is Ratha-yatra. So already on the day before, the pujaris are doubling their offerings, doubling the amount of food offered to Lord Jagannath. Normally, Lord Jagannath has what, 56 offerings or 52? Who knows? 56, yes. So the 56 offerings per day are going on, but the amount offered has been doubled, because tomorrow is Ratha-yatra. So early in the morning, Lord Chaitanya and his associates rise, because King Prataparudra, the king of Orissa at the time, has given them permission to witness the Pandu Vijay ceremony, in which Lord Jagannath is taken from the altar and put on his chariot. So King Prataparudra, who's always wanting a personal darshan, a personal audience with Lord Chaitanya, he's given permission. Yes, you can enter the temple right up front and see the servants of the deity carrying the Jagannath deities out to the carts. And actually, those with the transcendental vision can see that Lord Jagannath moves only by his will. It's not that because puny human beings are picking him up and taking him step by step to the cart that it's happening. No, Lord Jagannath allows himself to be moved. So we'll read a verse. This is text 1 of chapter 13, the ecstatic dancing of the Lord at Ratha-yatra. Sajya Krishna Chaitanya Sri Ratha-yatra Nanataya Yena Sid Jagatam Chitram Jagannatho Pivishmitaha. This is the invocation. Every chapter in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita begins with an invocation. Keynote verse that sets the pace, so to speak, sets the mood for the rest of the chapter. So, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who danced in front of the car of Sri Jagannath, be all glorified. By seeing his dancing, not only was the whole universe held in wonder, but Lord Jagannath himself became very much astonished. So this is very fascinating. Lord Jagannath is the Supreme Personality Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality Godhead. Yet the dancing of Lord Chaitanya is fascinating, astonishing Lord Jagannath. So here you have such variegated reciprocation, which is a challenge to impersonalism. The impersonalists say everything is pure oneness. And Krishna says, all right, I'll come as Lord Jagannath, I'll come as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they'll have pastimes between them. What are you going to say about that? So this is how monism is challenged. Just like the very existence of the Panchatattva. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. You say everything is pure oneness? So Krishna says, I'll come as 5. What do you say about that? And the interplay, the interaction between all these members of the Panchatattva is so fascinating, just as is fascinating the interaction at Ratha-yatra between Lord Jagannath and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now remember, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the role of Krishna's dearest devotee. He wants to take that position so that he can understand Srimati Radharani's love for Krishna. He can't do that as Krishna. So he takes her position and takes her emotions, and that's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So therefore, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is marching behind the Ratha-yatra car, or in front of the Ratha-yatra car, he's, as Srimati Radharani, beckoning Krishna, come back to Vrindavan. Let's get out of this Dwarka stuff. So much opulence and awe and reverence. We need to go to the bank of the Yamuna River. We need to go to the forest of Braj. So remember, Lord Jagannath for 15 days has been alone with Mahalakshmi, the supreme goddess of fortune. Generally in Dwarka, you refer to Rukmini as the supreme goddess of fortune. So there in Dwarka, everything is done according to proper protocols. Respect, reverence, awe, veneration. But in Braj, Yogamaya makes it so that no one knows, none of the Brajvasis know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're just attracted to him because they're attracted to him, because this infinite attractiveness. So Lord Jagannath wants to go to Vrindavan. He's done the right thing before taking off. He spent 15 days with Mahalakshmi. Now it's time to go, and evidently he has her permission. That's the Ratha-yatra festival. Later you'll find out he doesn't come back for a week, and there's a problem. But you'll find it out in the next chapter, the performance of the Vrindavan pastimes, Hera Panchami, the festival known as Hera Panchami. Let us hear a purport, which is very deep. This is verse 24 of the chapter, Majja 13, the Lord's dancing at Ratha-yatra. The preceding verse says, for 15 days the Lord had remained in a secluded place with the Supreme Goddess of Fortune and had performed his pastimes with her. And in the purport we hear, the 15-day period of Anavasara is also called Nibritta, in honor of the solitary place where the Supreme Goddess of Fortune lives. After living there a fortnight, Lord Jagannath took permission from the Goddess of Fortune to leave. Text 24. Having taken permission from the Goddess of Fortune, the Lord came out to ride on the Ratha cart and perform his pastimes for the pleasure of his devotees. Now what's going on at a deep level in which we don't discuss in front of an audience of non-practitioners, because they'll take it to be something mundane. These are Krishna's confidential dealings. Just like you don't explain your confidential affairs and your relationships to the general public. It's your business, your affairs. So similarly, devotees, not wanting to offend Krishna and not wanting others to have an opportunity to offend Krishna, don't discuss his private affairs loosely. The audience has to be qualified. So purport, and listen carefully because there are some very deep points in this purport. In this connection, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that as an ideal husband, Lord Jagannath remained 15 days in a secluded place with his wife, the supreme goddess of fortune. So you got that as an ideal husband. He did his duty according to Dharma, the codes of Dharma. Nonetheless, the Lord wanted to come out of seclusion to give happiness to his devotees. So how's he going to do that? How's he going to give happiness to his devotees? The Lord enjoys himself in two ways, known as Swakiya and Padakiya. The Lord's conjugal love in the Swakiya rasa relates to the regular principles observed in Dwarka, where the Lord has many married queens. So everything is proper, everything is done according to regulated protocols, marriage, royal palace life. But in Vrindavan, the conjugal love of the Lord is not with his married wives, but with his girlfriends, the gopis. Conjugal love with the gopis is called Padakiya Rasa. Lord Jagannath leaves the secluded place where he enjoys the company of the supreme goddess of fortune in Swakiya Rasa. And he goes to Vrindavan, where he enjoys the Padakiya Rasa. So where is Vrindavan? It's the Gundicha Mandir, about 2 or 3 miles or kilometers, I can't remember which one, away from the Jagannath temple, which is Dwarka. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur therefore reminds us that the Lord's pleasure in Padakiya Rasa is superior to his pleasure in Swakiya Rasa. Now some knowledge so that we can philosophically discriminate and not make offenses, thinking, oh, it sounds like something I know about. Sporting with girlfriends, sneaking out at home away from the wife. In the material world, Padakiya Rasa, or loving affairs with unmarried girlfriends, is the most degraded relationship. But in the spiritual world, this type of loving affair is considered the supreme enjoyment. How could that be? In the material world, everything is but a reflection of the spiritual world, and that reflection is perverted. So what is the topmost in the spiritual world becomes the worst, the bottom in the material world. We cannot understand the affairs of the spiritual world on the basis of our experience in the material world. The Lord's pastimes with the gopis are therefore misunderstood by mundane scholars and word wranglers. The Padakiya Rasa of the spiritual world should not be discussed except by one who is very advanced in pure devotional service. The Padakiya Rasa in the spiritual world and that in the material world are not compatible. The former, the Padakiya Rasa in the spiritual world, is like gold, and the latter, the Padakiya Rasa in the material world, is like iron. Because the difference between the two is so great, they cannot actually be compared. However, just as a knowledgeable person can easily distinguish gold from iron, one who has the proper realization can easily distinguish the transcendental activities of the spiritual world from material activities. So as Lord Jagannath is proceeding toward the Gundicha temple, a couple of miles, he looks and sees fine white sand spread all over, resembling the bank of the Yamuna, and small gardens on both sides look just like those in Vrindavan. As Lord Jagannath rode in his car and saw the beauty on both sides, his mind was filled with pleasure. So this is the relationship between the Snan-yatra, the bathing of Lord Jagannath, his going into seclusion, ostensibly to recover from a cold, from a fever. But actually he's spending time with his official wife, the goddess of fortune, Mahalakshmi. And then after 15 days that he wants to go to Vrindavan, from Dwarka to Vrindavan, to experience the Padakiya Rasa. So the Ratha-yatra festival, as many of you know, is a festival of bringing Krishna back to Vrindavan. At the start of the Ratha-yatra, something special, and we can discuss it. Something special happened to King Prataparudra. As you know, King Prataparudra always wanted a darshan, the audience of Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya refused. No way. I don't see kings even in dreams, what to speak of in person. They're all worldly-minded politicians enjoying sense gratification and royal opulence. But his followers, as you know, kept telling Lord Chaitanya, the king is a great devotee. He's a better devotee than we are. And Lord Chaitanya would respond, I don't care that he's a better devotee than all of you. Just his having the name king means I'll never see him. So the devotees didn't know what to do. And Lord Chaitanya was so strong in his resistance. And he told them, if you keep bringing this up to me, I'm leaving, I'm out of here. And the devotees were horrified, of course. Oh no, what to do? So at the beginning of the Ratha-yatra parade, King Prataparudra, and you have to understand the sociology of the times to fully appreciate how monumental and extraordinary was what the king did. He took a broom and swept the road in front of Lord Jagannath's cart. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. The broom had a golden handle. So what's so extraordinary about the king sweeping the road with a broom that had a golden handle, preparing the road for Lord Jagannath's going on the cart? You have to understand the social situation. In India, even today, a street sweeper is considered the lowest of society because so many filthy, dirty things are on the street. So here is the king of Orissa. And what is he doing? He's sweeping the road. Okay, it's a golden-handled broom, but the fact is he's sweeping the road like the most menial, lowly person. So Lord Chaitanya sees that. After sweeping the road with a broom that had a golden handle, the king sprinkled the road with sandalwood-scented water. So he's the occupier of the royal throne, but he engages in menial service to Lord Jagannath. So I hope now you can understand how monumental this occurrence is. Without knowing the social situation, you might think, what's the big deal? The king is sweeping the road. He's doing something official for inaugurating the Ratha-yatra. But when you understand the social situation, how exalted is the position of the king at that time, and how the sweeper of the street is considered the lowest, then you can begin to appreciate how Lord Chaitanya viewed the whole situation. So, Chaitanya Charitamrita explains, upon seeing the king engaged in such menial service, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became very happy. So by the king's rendering this menial service, he received the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So in the purport, we get some very strong instruction. Unless one receives the mercy of the Lord, he cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead or engage in his devotional service. Atapite deva parambuja dvaya prasada lesanugrahita evahi janati tattvam bhagavan mahinno nachanya eko picharam vachinvam. This is a prayer by Lord Brahma in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. So we continue with the purport. A devotee who has received even a small fraction of the mercy of the Lord can understand him. Others may engage in theoretical speculation to understand the Lord, but they cannot know anything about him. Although Maharaj Prataparudra was very eager to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord refused to see him. But when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw the king engaged in menial service to Lord Jagannath, he became very happy. Thus the king became eligible to receive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. If a devotee accepts Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the universal guru and Lord Jagannath as the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, he is benefited by the combined mercy of Krishna and Guru. So yes, we want to see Lord Chaitanya as the universal Guru and Lord Jagannath as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And during the whole Ratha-yatra festival, you'll see the interactions going on between Lord Jagannath as Krishna and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Srimati Radharani. The exchanges between the two are the meaning of Ratha-yatra at the deepest level. At the more external level, Ratha-yatra simply is about the Supreme Personality of Godhead going for a ride. Just like you like to take a ride in a nice car in the countryside. So, you're part of Krishna. Krishna has that desire unlimitedly. And he has the unlimited ability to fulfill that unlimited desire. So he goes for a ride. That's the external reason. But the internal reason we already explained. He's going to spend 1 week at the Gundicha Mandir, which is Vrindavan. But meanwhile, back at the Jagannath Mandir, the goddess of fortune is thinking, oh, I gave him permission to go for a few days. It's been 1 week now. What's going on? So there's going to be a transcendental conflict. So just like you have affairs, relationships of all types, so does the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Otherwise, how could you have them? We don't consider our relationships, our affairs to be mythological, but influenced by impersonalism, we deny the Supreme Personality of Godhead his loving affairs, which have nothing to do with the material energy. So again, what is topmost in the spiritual world, Padakiya Rasa, Krishna's affairs with the unmarried gopis, is the most abominable thing when reflected into the material world. All right, any questions? No one has it. Yes. That's a long story. Suffice to say, Krishna can appear in any form he likes. And sometimes his form is challenging, as the form of Lord Jagannath does. Anything else? Yes.
I don't really know what my question is.
Be careful. This is very confidential subject matter.
I honestly just don't know what to ask. I said I don't know what to ask.
All right, don't worry.
Okay.
Just listen.
Okay.
Anyone else?
I have a question, Mark.
Yes, Rajalila Devi. So glad to see you.
I'm very good to be here, and I'm happy to see you.
So you,
Thank you for being here. I was a little curious about Dwarkadam and Gokul. So Gokul is manifested here for us so we can experience Krishna. When we talk about Dwarkadam, I'm just wondering, is Dwarkadam also in Vaikuntha?
yes, Dwarkadam is in Goloka, Krishna Loka. It's beyond Vaikuntha. So as Brihad Bhagavatamrita explains, this is Sanatana Goswami, that the distress of Goloka Vrindavan stands on the head of the happiness of Dwarka, what to speak of the happiness of the Ayodhya. Ayodhya Dham is the top of Vaikuntha. The distress of in Vrindavan, caused by separation from Krishna, stands on the head of the happiness of Dwarka and Ayodhya Dham. So what looks like the distress, the agony of separation from Krishna is actually the greatest pleasure. Once you understand the context, you can see it in that way. Another example given by Sanatana Goswami is what happens when you take an ice cube and you press it against your skin and it's not as hot outside as it is now. It feels burning. How can ice, which is super cold, feel burning? Similarly, love of Krishna in separation seems to be agony, just like ice seems to be burning. But actually the ice is cold, and love of Krishna in separation is actually the greatest pleasure. It requires some thought. Anything else? Yes.
So, Brad, who are we talking about? Lord Chaitanya's associates telling him about Prataparudra.
Someone has to repeat.
Lord Chaitanya's associates.
Lord Chaitanya's
Associates.
associates,
When they told him about King Prataparudra,
when they told him about King Prataparudra,
Lord Chaitanya is known to be the Lord himself.
Lord Chaitanya is going to,
Is known to be the Lord himself, the Supreme Lord himself.
yes, known to be the Supreme Lord himself. His followers know that.
So, how come that he is not accepting King Prataparudra's act?
How come he's not accepting King Prataparudра's request for audience?
Yes. Since you should know the
Because Lord Chaitanya's desire, which he's adamant about 99% of the time, is to follow the rules of the sannyas ashram, super strict. And his followers don't want that. You're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What do you need to demonstrate austerities for? But Lord Chaitanya wants to set the example of a super strict follower of the principles and rules of austerity of the sannyas ashram. So therefore, I refuse to see a king. I am forbidden to associate with materialists. I'd rather drink poison than associate with materialists. And the king is a materialist. But he's a devotee. That's all right, but he has that name, king. Therefore I refuse to see him. The public will make fun of me. What kind of sannyasi is this, hanging out with worldly-minded persons intimately? So Lord Chaitanya refused again and again based on that. And his followers were pained. Why are you following the rules of austerity so strictly? You are Krishna. And whenever they would say like that, Lord Chaitanya would cover his ears. Don't say I'm Krishna. I'm just a tiny sannyasi. So this way Chaitanya Charitamrita goes on. All right?
Yes, Maharaj. Then a follow-up question is,
Oh, he's really hungry today. He's fired up. Yeah.
if Lord Chaitanya is actually displaying the strictness of the sannyas ashram,
If Lord Chaitanya is actually displaying the strictness of the sannyasa ashram, super strict, beyond the norm,
then how is it that the sannyasis were expected to be studying scripture and Lord Chaitanya is dancing around and he's being criticized for dancing around?
so to strictly follow as a sannyasi, he should be studying the scripture, but he's dancing, chanting in ecstasy. That is the complaint of Prakashananda Saraswati and his thousands of Mayavadi sannyasis. Who is this Chaitanya? A sentimental bhakta, chanting and dancing. Just see how emotional he is. He should be studying Vedanta. He should be performing severe physical austerities. Instead, he's chanting and dancing. What is this nonsense? But when they finally have a discussion with Lord Chaitanya, they find out he is unlimitedly more knowledgeable than they are. Okay? Krishna says, by all the Vedas, Krishna is to be known. Vedaishta sarva aham eva Veda. So Krishna is the conclusion of the Vedas. And Krishna, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, already knows the Vedas. He explains to them this chanting and dancing is the culmination of all Vedic study. What do you think about that? So when you're chanting and dancing and playing your drum, you're at the conclusion of all the Vedas. And when your dynasty, your clan is doing their dancing, as long as they're chanting while they dance, they're at the conclusion of all the Vedas. All right?
Yes, Maharaj.
Someone else had their hand up? I thought I saw. These are very good questions. Yes, Anantana. When Maharaj Prataparudra, the king, received Lord Chaitanya's mercy in the garden, after Lord Chaitanya embraced the king, they're showing ecstatic symptoms.
I'm wondering what happened after when Lord Chaitanya did he realize that it was Maharaj Prataparudra?
What you wonder what happened when?
After the embrace, did Lord Chaitanya realize that it was Maharaj?
Did Lord Chaitanya know it's Maharaj Prataparudra, the king? Yes, but he didn't show it. He embraced him. You are so magnificent. You are so magnificent. You've been vibrating Krishna Katha, talks about Krishna. So externally, Lord Chaitanya is lost in ecstasy. But internally, he knows this is the king. So in that way, he gave the king his mercy in a way that no one could criticize him. He was lost in ecstasy. what's the mundane, abominable equivalent? Someone does something foolish and they say, it was the alcohol. So Lord Chaitanya could say, it was the ecstasy. He was talking about Krishna. I was gone, lost in the ecstasy. And he knew. All right. Is it time for prasad? He's ready. You all didn't see that. The young fellow just, when he heard prasad. Another product of the Ratha-yatra dynasty. Prasad addicts. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.